This is the It's Time to Refresh podcast with Brad Riffresh, the podcast about life, music, traveling, shit, literal shit that is, and weird and wacky stories with Brad, and a range of guests from the planet Earth. Feel free to share the pod with your pals, your mom, your neighbor's dog, or even your shrink. It's all fun. You can follow our Facebook group called It's Time to Refresh Community, or It's Time to Refresh on Instagram. Write into the pod, ask questions, and share your stories. Enjoy the pod.
Hey kids, what time is that?
It's time to refresh.
You all right? How we doing? Just want to take 2 minutes of your time before we start this week's podcast to tell you about our Patreon. Patreon is a tool that we're using to help the podcast grow, give you better content, and, well, as I said, just let the podcast grow. So we've got 3 tiers. The first tier, there's only 20 of these spaces available, and it's £1 for life, and that's for It's Time to Refresh Originals. So if you've tuned in from day one and you want to join the cause, you can sign up for £1. Just follow the link in the description. We've got the standard Patreon, which you get access to bonus episodes, some exclusive content, Patreon specials, which we'll be recording, and early access to all future episodes. So you'll be getting them on a Tuesday instead of a Friday, which I think is fucking amazing for £3. That's less than a coffee. And then we've got our legend status VIP Patreons, which is £10. And that gets you tickets to all my gigs, and it will get you free entry to any It's Time to Refresh associated events, gigs in the future. So that's a little hint of what's coming up in the future. If you do like the podcast, then please share it with your mates. We are trying to grow this little thing we've got going. We've got some amazing guests coming up in the future as well, and we want this to go bigger and better. So sign up at Patreon at patreon.com/It's Time to Refresh. Thank you. Enjoy the episode. Back once again with another podcast. This is a very special episode. We've got the one and only MC Finchy. How are we doing?
Yeah, all good. All good. Hot.
Very hot, yeah. We've come down today to Stu's, and basically we're going to get cracking on. I want to get into your story a bit. I know you've told it on other podcasts that you're your own, and you've touched on certain things, and I know you were on Rob's podcast as well.
Yeah.
And you touched on the frequency stuff, but I want to get right back to the beginning. So, how are you doing, anyways? Have you got some gigs coming up or out?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, full steam ahead, as it's been for the whole year, really. I mean, this is actually for the past year now. All my weekends are pretty much taken up by January. I have the odd weekend here and there, but I do give myself one weekend off a month. So yeah. This is the weekend I've actually got off.
And I've dragged you to do this.
No, it's all good. So yeah, I've got spending time with a bit of friends and that this weekend, which I don't get to do that often. So
I was going to ask that because I'm just me, and I do my sort of gigs every so often. I'll sort of do maybe once or twice a month, if that, and it's only one day. But you're the busiest, one of the busiest people in the scene.
Yeah.
How do you find the work-life balance?
Yeah, it works fine for me now because I do pretty much one gig a week. The only exception if there's a good couple of gigs that land on the same weekend, I'll do it. For instance, the end of the month I've doing the annual Clubland event in Edinburgh, which is always a sellout, and then on the Sunday there's a festival on in Newcastle called Loose Fest.
Right.
So, if stuff like that does come around where it's a festival or a big event, I do tend to do it. So yeah, generally speaking though, it's just one a week, and it works well for what I want to do. I've done it where I've done 3-4 a week.
Yeah.
And it became more of a
chore
job,
than more
like a job. Whereas at the minute, it's a bit like a job, but it's more of a hobby.
Yeah. You're not dedicating yourself to a 9 to 5 as such. It's you just do it. Yeah. But knowing how busy you are in the scene, I've always thought it must be having a full-time job as well. You must be insane to balance it. But
yeah,
you seem to have got it in a nice position.
I've been doing it now. It's 18 years. So I think once you've been, you kind of understand. you know, what works for you, what doesn't.
Yeah.
But you know, it can be tempting because you know the money can be quite good to just take everything. But then I start moving into the territory where at one point it did become a job, and I didn't enjoy it. So yeah, it takes a bit of time. It takes a bit of getting used to it. But you know, you have to make sacrifices which people don't tend to see, and you know. You miss occasions, you miss parties, you miss friends, spending time with family, misses, etc. So, you know, it can take its toll, but it's all good.
Right. So I know I sort of got into a thing there, but I want to start at the beginning with you. Like, I'm sure you've told it before, but I just want to hear from the beginning of Finchy. Like, were you MC Finchy from the start, or what was the crack?
That's one of the stories that I tell. So when I first started, like Crick was. Like the Crick CDs were massive around Wigan. Well, Wigan P was the first time I heard the music, and then Crick was the first time I heard like MC, and it was Farrell and Avi on the infamous Crick All Nighter with PNB and Stephen J. Best
I know that one.
CD ever. So I first heard that, and I was like, wow, this is a bit of me.
How old were you at the time?
So that would have been probably 2002, 2003. So yeah, I would have been 13. So I was at a house party and I stole the CD. And then that was it. I had it on repeat non-stop. Within 2 weeks, I knew the whole CD off by heart.
I think everyone does that, don't they?
Everyone does. Every now and then we put it...
When you said it there at the P&B Steam and J, I was like, oh yeah, that one.
Well, that's a funny thing because it's mad because obviously as time's progressed and I've got, you know, become mates with Farrell and Avi. It's mad because see, at the time when I first heard it, I was like, wow, these are like, in my eyes, they were megastars. I was like, I couldn't believe it. Properly blew my mind. I knew like straight away. Then I thought, right, this is something I want to do, because I think I'd already with the Wigan Pier stuff. I'd already had decks. My dad was he's always been involved with music, so I already had some decks. So I had a basic kind of understanding of music, and it already.
What style was you playing?
All bounce stuff.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So
really?
It was like from before I went to high school, I was listening to. You know, like Key 103, Rock FM on Friday nights used to have dance music.
Yeah.
You know, obviously trance was the big thing around then. So it's, you know, bounce used to have elements of trance in it. So I was always listening to that high energy dance stuff. So yeah, it was like the bounce stuff, the old trance stuff was what I used to have. And then when I heard the MC and when I heard that CD, that's when I
it's a bit surreal.
That's what I wanted to do.
It's a bit surreal thinking about it because you were saying about how it was with Farrell and Avi there. And it's like, I remember LimeWire and I downloaded a Frequency CD. It was like first time I'd heard you and Azzy, I think it was. Yeah. And I listened to this and then I thought, like, obviously I was only young at the time, so you just excuse me, do you know what I mean? But I thought, oh, these must be like Tupac and Biggie, like, you know what I mean? Like that, like, because obviously the only sort of output I had to like hearing rappers or out like that, it was you'd watch like movies and it'd be like 8 Mile and stuff like that, and you think, oh, I wonder if that's how they got into it, and then that's how it is. And I just thought, I bet they're dead famous. And then obviously when you get into the scene and stuff, you're just like, oh, they're just normal people like me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. That's the good thing as well, especially about like in bounce music in particular, is pretty much everyone who I've met throughout the years, everyone's been sound. Like I said, listen to the Wigan Pier stuff, so like Mikey B and Ben T.
Yeah.
You know, Mick's a good friend, has been for years. I mean, I've just been playing golf with Ben. Me and Ben play golf every week.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's mad because, a lot of the people who I've met throughout have really been sound. I think I even said to you like the other day, in 18 years, I don't really dislike one or two people, maybe. That's it. And, you know, I think it's pretty good going and says a lot about the scene. But I think it's, you know, a lot of people from other scenes have always said, you know, what's kind of the magic formula? Why does everybody get on? And I think with anything, whether it be business or, you know, any kind of community, anything like that, it starts with the people at the top. Yeah. And if they instill kind of, you know, have a good ethos and they're sound with everybody else, that is only going to trickle down. Whereas, you know, you get in other scenes where maybe the people who were at one point running things or in charge, pulling a lot of strings, you know, were more out for themselves, where it's a bit more, there's a bit of selfishness, don't get me wrong, but it's a very kind of selfless scene. Everyone helps each other out. I've
found that since I've came to the scene, I've tried other genres of music and that as well, and there's always like people who don't want to share ideas and stuff like, oh, say, how did you do this or how did you do that? And they're like, oh, that's my thing, I'll do that. That's fair enough. But there've always been a thing of helping. Like, I was learning to produce music, and when it come along to it, it's like there's a lot of people out there who in the scene who are just really helpful and, as you say, selfless. It's like if you ask for advice or guidance of anybody like that, it's there. It's not like other scenes where obviously I've dipped my toe in other scenes. I've done a bit of hardcore and a bit of house music, and it seems to be they're all at the race to the top. Not so much hardcore, but more house. It's like that's what I've found. I'm not trying to be negative or anything like that, but everyone's trying to get that big hit, and it's like, and the only way you can sort of learn the styles of the producing the music is if you pay for the courses and stuff like that. Whereas you see a lot of the lads now who's doing tutorials and that online, and they want to bring through the next generation of producers or and even anything like that, or the competitions that get put on. You always see now like there's room 2 competitions, and the next minute the guys who were winning these competitions, they play main room and they're sort of building a name for themselves. What do you think of the scene at the minute? Like, do you think it's? I know the numbers are down across the board, but like, what do you think? Like, do you think it's in a healthy position? There's a lot of content. There's a lot of music being put out. Like, off the top of my head, I can think of like every week you get releases on, obviously your Beatport, your Juno, stuff like that. But then you've got Acceleration Digital. You've got Clubbed. They're putting out music every week. It's like it seems to be a lot of stuff getting put out. What do you think the state of the scene's like at the minute?
I think there's a lot of papering over the cracks, if I'm honest, in terms of the music, because I think at the minute we're in the, like you said, the numbers are down, and that's only been the last 6 months, but that's just not our music, it's right across the industries. There's festivals, events being cancelled left, right and centre.
Just living cost of living crisis.
And it's very reminiscent of what it was like in
late 2000s and
the late 2010 kind of era when the recession hit. A lot of stuff at the time as well that was being churned out music wise was a lot of chart remixes, which seems to be happening again, very prevalent, and they're the ones that seem to be getting pushed. So there's a lot of in terms of content, there's some really good stuff being made. I just don't think we've not progressed much in terms of music and original stuff, which I've always been a big advocate of. I think when we went through a stage a few years ago of like people doing house remixes, which were in the charts, which is not too bad. But now again, we're stepping into that territory where we're donking over
everything. Yeah,
Ed Sheeran and bloody and anybody using which are not dance tunes; they're just the pop tunes. So that's happening a lot again.
I've come across this quite a lot, like, but from on the other side of the coin, it seems to be at the minute that you could put out a chart remix and you know it's going to do good numbers straight away. So it's like producers are just being lazy with it and doing it, but it's getting them the recognition. So like I know people in the scene who've put out some good original music, but it just doesn't get the push. Do you know where I'm coming from? So like it can be frustrating at times. I've wrote original music, and when you pay for like a vocalist and then you pay for like, do you know what I mean? Everything that happened like professionally mastered music, and for it just to like fall by the wayside, it's a bit disheartening. So you can see why some people just jump on doing the latest chart remix where they can get the vocal offline, put it in, and the next minute they've got a best-selling tune on like these independent sites.
Yeah. I mean, it's all short-term gain as well. I mean, like long-term, like I said, short-term it might get your name about, and you know you might do all right off it. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, nobody's going to be making millions. So I think. I mean, this is just me personally, but I just think for the small investment, you might get the sales back, you might lose a bit, you might break even, but long term, it's a better body of work than just grabbing a chart. But I mean, that's how I'm seeing it at the minute. I think the events as well, it's going to be survival of the fittest again, like it was in 2010.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the events that were going, those events going up left, right, and centre. I think they're going to die off. But we'll just have to see what the cost of living does. I think it's going to be a challenging 12 months for everybody anyway.
Yeah,
but I
think people are picking and choosing what events, rather than you see some people who'll go out like sort of maybe 2 or 3 weekends out of the month, whereas now strain on the cash and it's just maybe one event a month. So then
months, but it's getting to point now once every 6 weeks. And it's not like they're really picking and choosing. It's like they've no option. It's like when
I know, but they've got to pick one to go to.
Got plan advance.
Yeah.
So I mean, but it sounds a bit negative, but I'm a bit of a realist as well. That's just how I've seen it, and I've noticed definitely in the past month. Then numbers dropping. I mean, I'm quite fortunate because I do get to play quite big events, but even those guys the numbers are dropping. So while they might have had a couple thousand last year, they've down to like 1,500 or 1,000 this time round. So
I understand.
But we'll see. We'll survive.
We sort of went off on a tangent there, but I want to get into the you discovering the bounce music and that, and obviously you become friends with all the lads from Pier, and you as I say, you're friends with them on a personal level now, obviously. So where was the first gig? Where was it as Finchy or?
Well, yeah. So I think revisit what I was going to say before. So I think geography has always played a big part in I think how successful I've been. I think I've been lucky in that part because I'm from Wigan. It's like I always say, bounce music's like the heartbeat of Wigan.
It's like the hub for the whole country as well.
It's like everybody likes it, even the people that pretend not to do like it. You put
a few
bounce
beers,
at a party, at a wedding, christening, funeral, anywhere you put it on in Wigan, people are up dancing, going off. Everybody knows the songs. So I once I started getting into the MCing, there was one of the lads who had decks locally as well, Chris Parr. So I'd go around to his, we'd do record mixes and whatnot on his tape, and they started getting passed out like round schools. So I kind of had a bit of a name for myself already. I was always quite popular in school. I was one of them. I had friends kind of all over different places in Wigan, so I was kind of well known already. So with me MCing, that was like another. So I became known as it's Finchy, the lad who can MC. So at the time you had Maxims every Wednesday. Used to do an under 18s, and it was an open mic. And there used to be an under 18s at 51st State, but I never went to the Maxims one at the start. I used to go to 51st State,
which is now Pure, isn't it?
Which is now Pure. So there used to be like 2,000 kids in there once a month. So just going round trying to snog as many girls as you could. And then there used to be, you could wait for quite a while for a go at the mic, and MC Joker was the MC there at the time. So eventually that was the first time I physically got on stage in a club.
What was the first lyric you recorded on these tapes? Like, what was the first one where it's like, people are noticing?
Purple Aki.
Purple
Aki and Coronation Street were the first two that I ever wrote.
See, I can remember getting them off like LimeWire and stuff like that, and it's like, this lad's different, because like I've never heard someone MC about Roy Cropper before. You know, no, but just one of them things, and it's like different, and it's you're not taking yourself too seriously. Where you see some of these people and they'll fire out bars where it's like, I don't know, about fucking you up or like, do you know what I mean? Like, pretend to be a G, but it's like, it's not that, is it? It's
no, but that was always like, because all I ever spoke about was stuff that was, relevant to what I knew and what I did, and that's why I never identified like with rap. And grime and stuff these days as well. I can appreciate what they do, and what they do is really good, but I just can't identify with it. I can't relate to it. I've never come from the hood. I wasn't. Don't get wrong, I wasn't brought up. I was kind of dragged. I was a scoundrel, but it's I was just kind of typical scally when I was a teenager. All this other stuff I can't relate to. So that was my kind of ethos. Really, was just entertain, make people laugh. And I always remember, actually, I can't remember where I wrote Purple Aki, but I do remember writing Coronation Street. It was in the front room of Chris Parr's house. And I remember a few people who were there, and I was like, I'm going to write this about Coronation Street, so I started writing it down. So actually, they were the first two that I wrote. And then we started going to Maxims. They had a MC competition at 51st State. So I put my name forward for that, and then...
How did you do that? Was this because obviously I don't know what year is this? Sorry.
So this was like probably still 2000. This probably moving on to 2003 now. 2003, 2004.
So did you have to physically go to them and like put
your
name
they
forward?
just said like they used to have a flyer that said, we're having an MC competition. Go and give your name in with your details. Winner got one. I think you got a recorded CD at the end of the night. And by this point, I hadn't been recording on the CD because 2002, like I think mini disc was as good as you could get. For like your everyday Joe, like we was, and then what was it then? Oh yeah, you won a CD, and then you got a gig at under 18s in Carlisle.
Right, randomly.
Yeah, randomly. So yeah, I put my name down. It's like I had quite a decent following already for like the under 18s, and then I got on the final. Avi was the judge. He was like my idol at the time, so I was like, no way, I'm going to see Avi in the flesh. So
Yeah, and Avi's going to see you MC as well.
So the final came and I ended up winning that, and then I started at Maxime's. I started going to Maxime's then because the 51st stopped running.
Who run the 51st date night?
It was PMB.
Right, okay.
He still owes me that CD as well. No, in fact, he made me buy the CD and he still owes me that gig.
That's tight. That's tight.
I bought the CD and he still owes me the gig. But yeah, and then I went to Maxime's. But then when I went to Maxime's, in between that, I met a lad called Fishburne. He was a lad who was quite a few years older than me, 3 or 4 years older. And he used to come down. We used to go like round to different friends' houses on decks and whatnot. And he'd come down and he just sounded so much better than what I did in terms of his voice and how he sounded on the mic. So he was one who taught me how to really project my voice and to improve my voice. So that was what made me stand out a lot at the under 18s when I went to, what's now pure.
It's not formal training, is it? But it's guidance from somebody who's got experience.
Yeah, because if you put any random person who thinks they can do a bit of MCing because they do it in the shower and shove a mic in front of them, 9 times out of 10 they're going to sound not too good. So that was like the immediate head start I had. I could project my voice well in the clubs, and then that transcended when I went to Maxime's, which was probably one of the hardest places ever to MC in terms of hearing yourself.
Yeah.
They had an open mic there, and I've got on, and then straight away, when I first went on, I seen Scotty G was the MC there. I seen him kind of like turn round, and he took a shining to me and kind of took me under his wing. And then I was doing that then for the best part of 9 months, maybe a year. Every single Wednesday, I was going down to the under 18s, and then eventually I was stood outside in the queue. Oh, by this point, I used to call myself MC Mint. So this I was stood in the queue and the owner walked past, and I've just said, "Hi, Pete." He kind of knew who I was. I knew who he was, and I used to say, "Oh, Reece," and he'd like say, "Oh, you're all right," and stuff. I never,
all right, Mint lad.
Yeah, I never used to speak to him. And this one time, he's like walked past me, said, "All right," and then he stopped, and then he's walked back, and he said, "Come with me." So we walked to the front of the queue, and I was glad because the queue was round the block every week. So I was thankful for that. Oh, get in, queue jump. And then he's just said to the bouncer, he said, "Let this lad in for free every week." I was like, bloody hell, that's all right. Save himself $2.50 there. Get himself another Panda Pop. So I walked in and he said, I really like what you do. I think you're really good. He said, we used to get a free CD every single week upon entry, which was the last week's recording. Oh, we've got a friend. Come here, Maud.
Yeah. It's all right, man. Honestly, it's a little cameo for you.
I knew she was I knew she'd be knocking about at one point. So we used to get this previous week's recording. You got that free upon entry.
That was like our under 18s as well. You would get like a CD3 or something like that out of a CD pack, and they'd just if they had more of them, then get
So he said, "What's your MC name?" So I'm going to start putting your name on the CD, because it used to be like DJ Tom or Gaz Hypnotic. Pete Daly used to come down every now and then. Jamie Agar did. So at this point, this was like, I've been calling myself MC Mint. I thought this could be big. This. So like, do I want to be known as MC Mint for the rest of my life? And I just went, Finchy. And then that was it. So we put my name as Finchy, and the rest was history.
Oh, I can't imagine an alternative universe. Well, there will be an alternative universe out there where there's
a guy called
MC Mint vodka rhyme sort of thing.
In a parallel universe, there's a guy called MC Mint who, when he's got his big shot, there's a guy called MC Finchy who, when he got asked what his MC name was, went, "I'm MC Mint."
Oh, I'm embarrassed for you. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's funny. I mean, I always tell it. It's obviously it's just part and parcel of it.
You wouldn't change it either, just because it's like, as you say,
funny story for podcasting, isn't it?
But I was going to say, so you're starting to get your name and that about. Obviously, you must be under 18 at this point.
Mm-hmm. So I think like 15, like probably 15 by this point at Maxime's. Yeah. So I had my name on the CDs probably 6 to 9 months, something like that. So I was there every week, and I became like a resident of the under 18. So my name was on the flyers, and then just out the blue, Pete's just said to me, are you ready for the over 18s?
So how old are you at this point?
16.
16.
Yeah, so still in school. So I said, yeah. He said, right. He said, well, come down on Saturday. It was National Anthems 2005. He said, come down on Saturday. He said, you can do the first hour, and then he said, you can just get off after that if you want. He said, so you can see what it's like. So I was like, right, happy days. So I've caught the bus there on the Saturday. I was saying at school, I don't have money. It was like, I grew up, I didn't have money at all. There was, I had to work to earn anything I got.
Do what you're doing, that's what it is.
So I've turned up and I was stood outside, and I thought the queue was big on a Wednesday. This queue was like, it was double the size. It was double the size, and it's fully grown people, like adults.
Did you find yourself intimidated at all because of your age?
No, not intimidated. I think it was just more nervous energy. I just wanted to get in there and kind of do my thing because...
Did anybody know Finchy? So
well, at the time I didn't know. I just went kind of on my own.
Yeah.
Obviously, I knew I was going to do all right because when other MCs would come down and done a guest slot at the under 18s, I could kind of hold my own with them.
Yeah.
So I wasn't phased at all in terms of actually going and doing the gig. But yeah, it was like a bit crazy. I stood on the opposite side of the road waiting for the doors to open, and then obviously the bouncers knew me by that point, so I just like kind of walked in. But yeah, I didn't know anybody in the club apart from people who I'd met. So I'd met Wiggy as well. He was a resident at the under 18s, so we became like good friends, and he made his debut the same night as well.
Same night, yeah. Are you a similar age?
No, Wiggy is 3 years older than me.
Right.
So yeah, he was like 18, 19 at the time.
Right.
So yeah, we both made our debut that night. So I did the first hour, and then I said to Pete, I said, "Oh, do you mind if I stay?" He said, "Yeah, of course you can." So like all the other MCs were like proper sound. There was like Blazy, Roach, obviously Scotty G I knew well from doing the under 18s. I met Rhythm for the first time, and he was one of my other idols as well. I had like Avi, FEZ, Rhythm, and Layback were the ones who I used to find the CDs and find them on.
Yeah.
They was like my favourite MCs at the time. So yeah, they all took me under the wing, all like looked after me, and then it was when I was there I recognised quite a few people who I knew who were a few years older, so like my friends' brothers and sisters and stuff. So then after a few weeks of going, then I bumped into quite a few people who I knew, like a few people who were older in school and a few people who I knew off the estate who were a few years old. So then I kind of started going down with them. So I knew people, and then at the time I was a member on like Wigan Tonight, so it was like the Facebook of its day. So then once I joined that, and then I started to get to know people on that, and then without knowing, I was just basically I was a wreckhead at the time, so I was just going partying every single weekend, going to Maxime's, ended up in some random gaff all over the northwest, but in effect I was networking, I was meeting people from different towns. So
you didn't realise.
Didn't realise. So it's only when I look back now, it was actually a good thing to do at the time.
Absolutely.
And then that's how I got my name round really. So yeah, they were crazy times. They were good though.
I find it really hard to sometimes network with people. Not network, because network sounds very, very fake, but like, because I don't go to after parties and stuff like that, you don't get the late night conversation of when you're wrecked and it's like da-da-da, and then, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I talk to people think I'm very serious and not blunt, but like I take it too seriously. I mean, I'm a complete idiot in the heart, do you know what I mean? Like, I think we said similar things growing up. Like, I come from no money to earn all my own money and that. So like, when I remember getting my first wage and buying, I know this is sort of off subject, but I bought a Dance Factory pack. Like you were on the CD, so let's have a look who's on the back. So and then it's saying who it was, Finchy, and ever since then, like, I've always when I grew up, I was like, right, I want to be involved with what these guys are doing, do this, and yeah, that's how it came for me. And obviously I'm like the generation after you, so it's like when you see people on the flyer and you're on the flyers with them, it's a bit surreal. So I can relate to the Scotty G thing when you're there, or like Blaze, Rhythm, and that up there for the first time, and you're rubbing shoulders with them. I can imagine it's like I've peaked now.
Yeah,
That's how it felt like.
No, I felt like I belonged there. It was weird because.
Oh no! I mean, there was no aspirations outside of that. Like these are the guys I listen to.
Yeah, there was no real aspirations. I was just winging it. I was just taking each week as it comes. I was going to Maxime's. I was just getting on the mic. There was no. I think I always thought, oh, I'd love to do the over 18s, but it weren't like I didn't have any. I weren't like, this is what I'm gonna do. It was just. I just went
Natural progression.
Yeah, I just went to school. I went out on Friday, got pissed. I went out on Saturday, went to Maxime's, got off my box, and then came home Monday, and
Class.
then went back in school. that was just how it. There was no right. I'm going to do here. I'm going to do there. It all just kind of came to me. There was no kind of plan or master plan. It was just.
Just
doing it. It was just like
so
it was a bit of fun.
When you were doing this, were you known as like the cool kid because you were the one going to the over 18s? Where I can imagine a lot of people who, as you say, Bounce being the hub in Wigan of like the heartbeat of Wigan. It's like. What's it like there? What's it like? People questioning you? Is that what it was?
Yeah, a bit of that. I mean,
my brother said he seen you in Maxime's. And,
it was. Yeah, there was a bit of that. I mean, I was quite lucky. The school I went to, it was like a pretty rough school. But my year, it was proper sound. We had a scream our year. There was no real idiots. Everyone was kind of good mates. We had a scream, so there was no. I didn't get put on a pedestal or anything. You know, I've always all my mates, even like my close mates who I've been mates with for a long time. You know, they don't put me on any type of pedestal. You know,
that's humbling, isn't it?
Yeah. So and it's always been the same. So yeah, I was never one. It might from the outside looking in, people might have thought that, but in my eyes, people didn't really change around me. Everyone's always kind of been the same, so I just see myself as the same person, really. I like to think it didn't change me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just asking because when I was playing in clubs at like 16, so a lot of my friends like hadn't even been able to get out yet. So like we had a local club, and everyone tried to get into that one club, and then maybe a handful would get in, like out of our whole year group, and then we'd go to school on the Monday, and it's like, I've seen you and so and so, and then all these people, like, oh look at me, I'm cool, I've got all this thing, but like for a bounce MC to be in Maxine, it's like it's a big thing. I think so personally, anyways.
No, I think definitely if I take stock at it and look back, then you know it was quite.
You
a
got
big
a lot
thing,
early,
but,
didn't you, sort of thing?
Yeah. So it was, but to me, like I said, I was just. There was no plan. I was just doing it. It was just like, for me, it was just like getting up and going brushing my teeth. It was just, I liked MCing. I like playing golf now. You know, I don't feel it was just what I was doing at the time, and happened to be get noticed and do all right.
Excellent. So when you're doing this, are you recording mixes at this point? Is there mixes going out, or is there any mixes that you still hear from that era now, where it's like a famous CD?
Not really. I mean, Maxime's, you were saying yourself before, like I said, I grew up in a nice area, but we didn't have much money in my house. You had to, like I said, you had to go and earn it. And I remember when I started getting paid from Maxime's, I didn't get nothing for the first 9 months, but I used to get last week's CD pack, which were worth about 15 quid.
Yeah.
So what I used to do is whoever's house I end up back into, I said, this is like my gift to you. So I'd always I could have had the ultimate Maxime CD collection, but I'd give them out every week. Then after the 9 months or so, I started getting paid, I think it was 25 quid.
Yeah.
But I had to do the under 18s as well. If I didn't do the under 18s, because I was like, after a year in, 2 years, I'm getting to 18, I don't want to go and do these under 18s every week.
Yeah.
If I didn't do that, I got docked 15 quid. No, I got docked a tenner, sorry. So I had to do that for 25 quid. But again, I'd just go parties and that, I'd always just go on buying booze.
Yeah, of course.
So it was, that's just what it was like, really.
So when was your first out of...
the mixes was... coming back like with Maxime's as well, like I say, it was a difficult place to MC in and sound good. So that's why I used to go back to parties if they had decks and everything set up and I could show what I could really do, that everyone was like kind of a bit blown away.
Yeah.
And it was around that time that, well, a bit earlier on actually before I started at Maxime's, I managed to sneak into a club called The Flame in Wigan, and I knew Alex R and Hodge because they was on Wigan Tonight.
Yeah.
So they was DJing. I got on the mic there and I introduced myself, and we always said, we need to do a mix, we'll do a mix, because all I wanted to do was record a proper CD somewhere. So we end up, I got from partying, that's where I met Azzy. He was on Wigan Tonight as well. And then we arranged a date to go and do a CD, and then I think the night before I was probably with Azzy and I said, do you want to come down and do this CD, this mix? So he said, yeah, let's go and do it. So we went, we did it, and straight away we knew, it was like, this is going to do really well. So it was like, we need a name. So that's how, as it came up with Frequency. Yeah. So Frequency 1 was the first CD outside of kind of the Maxims
thing
that we put up, and then that just blew up. I think we had about 8,000 downloads on it.
It's not bad,
on the first one. So that was when then we started recording the mixes and going down that avenue away from Maxims.
You were, but another thing that I think is insane, that, like, as you say, you were just going with the flow at the time, but you were creating this brand and you didn't even know. Like, Frequency now, it's one of the big names ever in bounce, and you just done this. Oh, we'll do this Frequency CD, and it's like you don't even realise what you're doing when you do it. Like you say, when you were saying you were networking and stuff like that, when it was a bit. You didn't even know you were doing it when you were just going house parties, and then now you've created Frequency, and you don't even know what this thing's gonna be, and it's.
But that's how a lot of stuff started. You know, within all kinds of music scenes.
Oh, absolutely.
People don't normally, especially when you're just young and you know you're just out for a
more
good
for
time.
fun, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't plan these things. You just do it, and then some things work, some things don't. But I think we knew once we recorded that first one, it was like this is good. This when was listening it back, and then. You know, we'd take it. It was the CD being played at all the after parties, and it was all. That's all anyone started speaking to me about when I was in Maxims. Like, when's the new Frequency CD coming out? Like, we were recording. Maxims were getting recorded every week, but nobody was really fussed. Everyone wanted to hear more Frequency. Did
you find yourself, like you were saying, like I've got a lot of the recordings from Maxims. The mic on it's not great. It was always a bit low.
Yeah, low.
I found that. So when you were doing the Frequency stuff, because you were, as you say, you were in a smaller space and people could hear you, you could do your thing a bit more.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why it's done as well as it did.
Yeah, that's why I always knew as well. I always knew after a bit of time at Maxims when I'd learnt a lot of new stuff, and I could freestyle really well. I had loads of rhymes, which I didn't really do at Maxims. I needed an outlet to channel all that, and that's why I was keen to do the CD. Because I did know that it was something that I needed to do at the time. But then, Frequency was the thing that kind of took it to a new level.
Am I right in thinking, was it Frequency 2 you done the vodka rhyme? Is that right?
No, it was actually Frequency 1 that, actually.
Was it?
But I first did the vodka rhyme, it was on just a Maxim CD.
Yeah.
Because I didn't write it, I just freestyled it. It just came off the top of my head. But it was one of those, YouTube started coming around at the time, and LimeWire, like you mentioned, and Bersher and all that kind of jazz. So I think I just made it up off the top of my head on the spot, and then someone just got that track, put it, and it was like went viral on Bluetooth and people's phones and stuff like that. So it went
from Frequency 1 track 3 to like MC Finchy vodka tune. I had it on my phone, and Bluetooth, I was guilty of having it, and it was. And I always just found that like that one was maybe just the right place, the right time, and you've just blew up naturally because everyone had it. Like, everyone around my area did anyways, and we live hundreds of miles apart, so it's obviously done well.
Yeah.
So when was your first out of town gig? So like obviously you've built a good reputation for yourself in Wigan. So when did other people come calling? Where was it?
First gig I had outside of Maxims was at a place called Swiss Bar in Burnley. I got friendly with a lad called Brad Hurst from Burnley. He was same age as me, and he was a lunatic. And we kind of, I don't know, we'd always kind of spoke, like, I don't know if it's like MSN days or something. He was kind of one of them people I'd never met but knew who he was. And then his friend put on an event, and they ended up booking me for that. I think I got 30 quid or something. So that was my first out of town gig. But then that night I met Lewis Pierce, LP, who had Fluids Bar at the time. So I got chatting with Lewis, and then he said, I'll book you for my place. So he used to book me once a month in Burnley. So that was again, I was probably I've been at Maxim's maybe 5-6 months or so at the time. So I was 16, I'd just probably left school by this point. So Lewis was he was the first person to start booking me outside of Maxim's.
Learn something new every day, I didn't know that.
Yeah. But then, I've always kept in touch with Lewis, so we've got kind of relationship outside of music as well, and he's not been DJing for a while, but obviously I booked him for my event in Burnley, so it's kind of full circle. So he was saying, I always remember I used to pay bloody 30 quid to come at Maxim's now. He said, I don't think I can get you for that now.
Crazy.
Yeah. So that was outside, and then I think after about 7 or 8 months, and then especially when the Frequency CD went out, bookings were just coming in from everywhere then.
Were you getting booked as MC Finchy, or were you just getting booked as like Frequency?
No, MC Finchy.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. The thing we did as frequency was at first frequency gig. It was at a pub called the Farmers Arms in Stockport.
I've heard the story.
Yeah, like Alex like dressed it up. Oh, I've got us a booking in Stockport. I'll take us to the club. Like, oh, what's it called? He's like, oh, I don't know. The lad said it's so no, and we got there. Jesus Christ, it was rough. I mean, it's one of them. You know, if they had a pub quiz, the first question they'd ask was, "What the fuck are you looking at?" You know, it was one of those types. So like, got in there, I was like, Jesus, what is going on here? But then, yeah, Alex then managed to. He said, "Oh, there's a club in Southport who's interested in letting us do something at Fubar."
Yeah.
So he said, "We're gonna get £100 each, and yeah, we can put it on." I was like, £100 each.
Yeah, big money at the time.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And I always remember the first frequent we got there. All we ever did promotion wise was put it on the forum, but I think we kind of knew that everyone was really thirsty for an event.
Yeah.
So we got there. The queue was down the street. We've gone in the club. It was shit all. And there was like at one point the speaker kept falling down off the wall. At one point, there's people just off the box, just taking in turns, holding like a PV speaker up in the corner. There's like, right, come on, I'm a bit tight, like waving. Right, so shouting up my right, can someone go and hold the speaker for 10 minutes? That's what it was like. But that just summed up what it was like. You know, we was all just pretty carefree. We found it funny. We found it hilarious. Like anything bad that happened, we all just laughed. We found it funny. The worst thing that ever happened, the more bad stuff that happened, the more that we'd all laugh. But apart from one person who always took exception, that was John Neal, Mr. Serious.
Yeah.
But then the angrier that he'd get, the harder we'd all laugh. So it was a never-ending cycle. I think culminated one night in John really losing his rag and picked up a load of paper strips like from tickets or something and like chucked them in Alex's face.
Stupid when you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I just want to ask you as well, because obviously a lot of people put you and John together when it comes to things. Like, first time I ever met you, it was a Finchy and John Neal set in Whitehaven. You've done a lot, like, you've done bits and bobs for like Bounce Heaven and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How did you meet John?
So I met John, Alex and Hodge. They were from Liverpool. So everyone in Liverpool in the music scene knows each other, don't they? Across all genres, it's you know, they look after their own. They always have done.
Yeah.
So John at the time was doing more hardcore stuff, but I think at the time he was DJing at the Sunrise as well in Liverpool. So when John, because he could do some bits on Photoshop. When we did the event, Alex has approached him and said, "Oh, can you do this event?" And I think John said, "Oh," and Alex said, "You can jump on it." So I think Alex had said, "Oh, we know this lad called John Neal. He's a good DJ. We'll put him on." And I was like, "Again, yeah, let's go for it. You know, if you say he's good, then we'll stick him on." And I think, but he couldn't make the first one for some reason. I think he was at an Everton game somewhere, so he couldn't make the first one. But then I think we recorded another frequency, and then I think that's where I met John at that point. And then
was he Mr. Serious from day one?
No, he's not Mr. Serious. I think it's certain stuff like we used to get in certain situations where again it's you just got to laugh otherwise you'll cry. But where we found the funny side, John never did. But then we used to just, because when he used to get angry, we'd all just laugh more.
But was it like that as soon as you met him? That's what I'm saying. Like,
no, I just remember it's just certain situations, like, you know. It's but yeah, when we'd all four of us would meet up, there'd always be one point within the night, whether it was making music or discussing what we want to plan doing. There'd always be at one point where if someone like said a joke and then we'd all just start laughing, he wouldn't find it funny, we'd just carry on laughing because he wasn't finding it funny. That was just what it was always like. But obviously me and John like still good friends now, and for about 15, 16 years.
It's crazy how time flies, isn't it?
Yeah.
So like you've started doing these frequency events. You've done Southport. That built up like I remember the recordings and stuff coming out from like Fubar and like I don't know whether what it was, but I always thought it always sounded like the atmosphere always sounded dead electric, and it's like it was a bit of like free for all if I remember rightly.
Yeah, I mean, we used to, a couple of my mates who used to come to Bounce, there was like, well, two of my mates in particular, Caney and Lynchy. Rest in peace, Lynchy, miss you. They used to go to all the hardcore, there was massive hardcore heads, like, you know, they come to like the bounce night, but it wasn't for them. There was like Mad, HCID, Raver Baby, all that kind of, went to like the Sanctuary and all that. And they came to the food bar, and then they came and they was like, that's the closest thing I've ever come to a hardcore rave.
Yeah.
The atmosphere was just unbelievable.
Very similar energy, isn't it? It's like
it was
euphoric, uplifting. I think that's why I was so drawn to hardcore, because it was like, well, this just sounds like what I make, but a little bit faster. And it's like, and I found when I seen you come over to the hardcore bit and do a bit there, it was like how adaptable your rhymes and flow was into the thing. So obviously I've listened to a couple of your sets, the hardcore sets. What was it I listened to first? Was it a Fracas and Darwin one? And like you were dropping your rhymes with the flow but a hardcore speed, and it just seemed to work. And
yeah, I mean, at the time I'd always been into hardcore, but it took a bit of a backseat because bounce was kind of
well, no, it's a big thing around here though, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's what it is.
It was only, and then I went to my first hardcore rave in about 2007 maybe, HCRD at Birmingham, and I was like, wow, this is like next level. So kind of, Kenny and Lynch had been mithering me for years to go with them.
Yeah.
So I went, and I used to go to the odd one every now and then. I used to go a lot with Jay Parker and Mick Omerod. Do you know,
I don't know.
He was in Destructive Tendencies.
Oh yeah. Sorry,
Mick,
I don't know.
So yeah, I used to go down with Mick, and I always say one of my worst I think I drank on the way back from Birmingham. I drank a full bottle of Sambuca, and I woke up in Mick's. It's the worst hangover ever. He came in, squirted me with a water pistol. It was like roasting like it is today. He said, right, come on, I've ordered a minibus. We're going to Blackpool for the day. I'm like, oh God. So I've got on this minibus, and halfway through I just went, drop me off. Just pulled off at Chorley on the motorway. I just got off and got a taxi. I always remember that. But when I was watching the MCs on stage there and what it was like, I was like, yeah, I kind of want a bit of this now.
Yeah.
And I got, prior to me going, I think Watsy had reached out and like I said, he was a fan of what I did and stuff. So we kind of built up a bit of a rapport, and became kind of friends with him. And he was just saying, he said, it's a bad time to start now. He said, you probably just carry on doing what you're doing. He said there'll be a time. So when I came, so skipping forward, I had like the time 10 years later or something. When I came back, I was like, right, I want to make a go like the hardcore thing. So when I was writing my new rhymes, when I came back, I was 50% of them were adaptable, so I could use them on bounce and hardcore.
Yeah.
So if you listen to my hardcore sets, there's a lot of rhymes that I'll say on the hardcore that I don't say on bounce. There's when you listen to a bounce set, you'll listen to a lot of stuff I don't say on hardcore.
Yeah.
But then you'll listen to the certain rhymes that I do say on both. So they was designed purposely to fit both,
genre,
fit both genres.
Yeah. So you're starting to get well known and stuff like that, and the frequency thing is well established, because I remember seeing like flyers on forums and that, and it was like, as you say, you said you weren't advertising it, like you weren't getting physical pictures printed and put in the thing. So like you had a natural sort of audience, and I always remember on MSN there was like my mates would send me like links to like when you're doing the recordings and stuff like that, and I was just it picked up so much like natural traction. It was as well. It was mad because during COVID, obviously, it was the massive live stream era. But we was doing that in 2007. Yeah.
Like, I think I don't know what volume it was, about 4 or 5. Hodgie he's like a bit of a tech wizard. He said, why don't we stream it? Because Wigan Tonight had the facility where, because when we used to record them, we used to go live as well on Wigan Tonight, and they got a facility where you could like live stream. So we got a webcam, and then that's when we started doing the live streams before it became live streams.
A lot of people like seeing that. Like I remember seeing, I don't know which volume it was. I think it was like maybe around about 7, 8, 9, something like that, and seeing like, oh, that's who Finchy is. That's, do you know what I mean? So you get put in name first, and you get to see. Obviously, there's that famous one you did with Roach, the back to back, and it's like you get to see how he's flowing and bouncing off each other. And I think if that video didn't come out, I don't think it'd have been as popular, the audio, because you can see the energy in the room when you're doing it. And I remember seeing the ones where like you were being daft on that, and I don't know where you were at. It was like someone's room, and you're wearing the England top and stuff. And it's like is it just being daft, and it give off like a relatable energy. Well, I thought it did anyways, but
that was, like I said, that just summed us up. That's what it was like. We didn't take ourselves serious. I mean, I still don't really take myself that serious. We was always the same, and I think, like I said, people connected with that, and it was relatable. So, like I said, with that we did get a lot of traction, and that was evident in the numbers that we used to pull for events. The people used to travel from all over. Events, we always remember we did an event in Barra. Zuni had us up there.
Yeah.
We booked a full hotel. We booked 50 odd rooms in a hotel. People from the northwest.
Ridiculous.
That's just what it was like at the time. It was brilliant.
Yeah. I just wanted to sort of not move away from the frequency thing, but like just want to focus on the Finchy thing for now. As that's going on, are you still doing are you still going everywhere as Finchy as well?
Yeah. I mean, at the time it was crazy. Between say like 2007 to about 2011, it was like 3, 4, 5 gigs a week. I was signed up to like a residency with, I think it's called Club.tv, which was an under-18s brand. So they used to do events right across the UK.
I vaguely remember that.
But it was very commercial, under-18s. So I'd be on a bill with like DJ Ironic, N-Dubs, Chipmunk, Titchy Strider.
Do you remember that actually? Yeah.
Then there was me, Blackout. I think that was it from our scene. Yeah, me and Blackout basically. So we'd do events and there'd be all these guys before they became, big time.
Big stars, yeah.
So we'd normally do 1 or 2 of them a week. Then Friday I'd do 2 or 3 on a Friday. Then I'd do 2 or 3 on a Saturday, and it was just like that every week for years. So it was crazy.
So and round about this time, the Bounce Heaven thing came along as well. You were doing bits with the Bounce Heaven lot. That was in Preston, now, wasn't it?
Yeah, Preston. I always remember as well, because to me it was just another booking. Doing this Bounce Heaven thing, I thought it was going to be dead. To be honest, I thought, what is this? Kind of got the concept, but I didn't think it was going to work.
Yeah.
And I'd been at a gig earlier on, and then I was on with John, and then I texted John. I said, "How rubbish is it?" Because I was thinking, if it's rubbish, I'll just text the promoter and say I'll not bother coming. And he said, "You're not going to believe it when you come here." He said, "I'm not going to say anything. He went, just wait till you get here." And I've walked in, and there was like 1,500 people in there. I'm like, what the hell? Obviously, it was the first time really that we had proper sets as well.
Because it's very organised, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was done the right way, and I always say it was way ahead of its time, because at the time all the events were you turn up and you just share the mic between you all night. So yeah,
I prefer
really
that format, to be honest with you. Like for me, I like the idea of looking forward to a specific set. So for instance, like you don't need to be say a frequency set all the time with you and John, where you sometimes maybe do different pairings, and I think that's more exciting than just saying, right, we've got these DJs and then these MCs on the flyer, where it's you advertise it and it'd be like, Finchy's on tonight with, I don't know, say Wiggy for instance, and it's like, oh well, I've never heard that set before, so you can, and then I like the idea of that, and it was always like, I remember seeing, was it Fitzy and Rossi and Bad Behaviour doing like a back-to-back thing. I thought, fucking hell, they're two of my favourite producers. Like, I'd love to be there. It's just one of them things. It's like, I think that's what the scene's lacking now. I don't want it to be like an arena show. Hello.
Come here, Mark. Come on. Come here.
I don't want it to be an arena show as such, but like maybe sometimes it's good to have a bit of a format. Some like, do you know what I mean?
I mean, to be honest, I think it's most nights now are like that. I mean, even like Sopranos, where it might seem like it is kind of every man for himself. It is structured in a way. So between certain amount of hours, you've got to be, there to man the mic. I mean, it's very rare these days that I don't really have an actual set. I mean, the event that me and Kenty put on straight through last Saturday, that was one of the main reasons I put on that night, is because I did want to do an event where there's no real structure as such, although I still put a structure in place, but it was good to just go and just kind of let loose whenever I wanted. I don't know if did you see I don't know if you've seen the remit I put up for MC, so like in the group.
Yeah.
So there was still a bit of structure to it, but it was good to still just go on and get on when I wanted within the space of the 4 hours when we had the mic turned on.
Yeah. I just, for whatever reason, I know your name might be more of an attraction, so when you're on, it might be just you or not, like a lot of these events. But when I'm booked for events, a lot of the time you'll see in like they'll have a little like WhatsApp group or something where it's like this night, and then it'll put in the set times or whoever's running it, and then it'll say like MCs on rotation. And like sometimes when I'm on and I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like it's just a bit of a free for all. There's no.
There's only really as well. I mean, that you're probably right in saying when I do get booked, I get given a set, and I'm normally left on myself to do it.
Yeah.
Because I don't mind going back to back with people, but I've got to be into it.
Yeah.
I prefer it if I know them and
Yeah.
they know me. I don't want to go to.
You don't want to be like an
somewhere
absolute fucking
with
plant pot.
a load of randoms. It's just not what I'm used to. I don't really do many gigs like that. Like I said, most gigs now I do a kind of good events, and they normally have a structure to them.
So I just want to get onto this bit now. In 2000 and when was it? 2012 was it? Yeah, you sort of took a back step and went to Australia, didn't you?
Yeah, I moved away. So I think it was, as I mentioned before, around 2010, things started tailing off a bit, and I was cut back massively on the gigs. So like I said, I was kind of burning myself out a bit, doing too much, and then got to the stage where I just started doing 1 gig a weekend, and then each one of them gigs was getting worse and worse as the weeks
even
went
the good
on.
ones, the numbers
Yeah,
were down,
the numbers were declining. And me and my mate were always saying about going travelling, so I was like, you know what, let's just go for it. So the plan was we was gonna go and not come back. That was like the initial plan, but again, it was just get over there and see what happens. So yeah, we went to Australia in 2012. So I did over a year in Australia.
Have you got any adventurous stories from that?
Well, how long have you got? I mean, it was. I drive my missus mad with them because, well, especially when I meet up with my mate who I went with, because
he's like, this one time at band camp.
Yeah, like don't say it. Oh, do you remember that in Australia? That's just what it's like. I mean, it's hard to just pick stuff up on the spot. It was picture just going on a lad's holiday,
but for a long period.
For a year,
time.
that's what it was like.
Heavy,
it was chaos. I mean, after a bit of time. There we spent all our money, so we had to get jobs, which most people do.
Did you have to do? I know a lot of people when they get a visa to go there for say 6 months to a year, they have to do like a public service.
Yeah.
So like you go like banana picking or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I was quite fortunate because when I moved down to Melbourne, my friend who I'd met through music, weirdly enough, he'd been out there for a number of years. Well, when I say I met him through music, I used to party with him back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd been over there a number of years. He got me a job with his bricklaying firm, just as a labourer. But his bricklaying firm were based in a place called Geelong, which is about 60 k's south of Melbourne. But that is classed as a regional zone.
Yeah.
So even though I was still working in Melbourne, from my PAYE form or whatever the version is in Australia, I had 6 months regional work on my to use for my second year.
Not bad, is it?
But at the time, one of my friends, one of my mates had signed for a rugby team in New Zealand. So he went living in Auckland, and one of my other best mates went with him. So I thought, you know what? After a year in Australia, I thought I'd go over to New Zealand for a bit. So I went over to New Zealand for about 4 months. And then the plan was I was going to come home for a few weeks and then go back to Australia and do my second year. But then I came back for a few weeks, and within that time, I've been offered a gig to go to Malia and MC every night at like the biggest club over there.
Yeah.
So I was kind of umming and ahhing what to do. I thought, you know what, I'll go to Greece. So I went over to Greece then for 5 months, and then that's what really made me get the love of it back again, because I went over to Greece. It was a lot of well-established DJs
different
over
scene,
there.
isn't it?
Yeah, it was like house music, commercial. And then I've just gone up there, like, done my thing, and there was all like, who are you?
Well, no one knows Finchy, yeah, exactly.
A lot of the artists there, they're more like urban artists, commercial. A lot are kind of based down south, so they don't really know about the bounce scene, or didn't know of me. So there was, that's when I kind of noticed, thought, I mean, it sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but like, when I go in somewhere, I know, like, if I get on the mic and stuff, people can't know who I am. Whereas I went over there, nobody knew who I was, but heads were turning and people like were taking notice. And then that's where people are saying like, why haven't you heard of you? Why don't you promote yourself? Because I never did. Like I said, I'd wing it, just take each gig as it come. I didn't know where my gigs were going to come from. They just come in. There was no planning. So it's after when I was over there and I had a bit of time to reflect and think. I thought, yeah, you know what? I feel like there's some unfinished business, and I don't think I've kind of tapped into my own potential. So I made a conscious decision that when I come back, I thought, you know, I'll give it a good go and see where it takes me. So I had aspirations then because I met a lad over there called Dom, and he had some big links into like people who used to run festivals and stuff. So he was like, the way that you are over here, he said, there's nothing stopping you getting on a festival at Creamfields or something like that. He said, but you've got to do it in this way. So I was like, right, okay. So that's when I changed my whole thought process and thought, when I came back, I thought, you know, I'll give it a good go and see where it takes me. And
when you came back, you're more like hosting, like you're not hosting, but because I know for a fact you still done the rhymes, but you just seem to hold out rather than go so like all guns blazing, and people were anticipating the rhymes. So when the drop came in and you were doing them rhymes, it was like awaited.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I can remember when you came back and it was like, oh, this is different, but like in a really good way. Don't get me wrong. I prefer that style because I mean it's easier for a DJ when you're playing as well. But yeah, you seem to. I'm judging character here, but you seem to carry yourself a bit better when that.
Yeah, like I said, it was like I never took myself serious. Like I was pretty like unprofessional. Really, I didn't. Some weekends I'd be triple booked. I wouldn't even know. I'd just say yeah to anything. I didn't have a diary. I didn't know what I was doing. I just normally see a flyer just a week before and think, oh yeah, I'm there this week. So when I came back, I was like, right, yeah, I want to, be more professional.
Is this when you considered your work-life balance and everything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit, but I think at the time, that's the first time when I've kind of had a plan and thought, right, so my plan was, one of the things I've always wanted to do is I wanted to get onto Creamfields. So I was like, right, if I'm going to get onto Creamfields, how am I going to do it? And then I'd end up getting mates with people over the years, and then I've just said, oh, what would be the chances? Can you make? And then one of the guys, Cy Helliwell, who's involved with like Good Grief and with Barry, who run that, he came to a BTID event. So at the time, I'd started doing stuff with BTID, who coincidentally was going down more the hosting route, which, you know, after I'd come back from Mali,
you slotted right in.
Yeah, once. Because that's the thing with full-on emceeing. When I first got there, I was doing too much, but I'm doing a full night on my own, 7 nights a week. So within 3 days, my voice was going. So then that's when I learned how to hold back and hold the crowd.
Yeah.
So yeah, the BTID, that's when Cy came, seen what I did, and he said, yeah, we said, we'll put you on. So, you know, there was, being that way, it opened up a few more doors. But I mean, a lot of it wasn't by choice. I'd still like to get somewhere and, you know, really drop all my rhymes. And
You've got to let yourself go sometimes, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of it is just there's a physical block. You can't physically go to a night and MC non-stop for 7 hours. So if you're there for like 6-7 hours, you can't physically do it. You know, I think definitely Mali was the place where I properly seasoned myself as a host, and I can literally count on one hand the amount of people who can actually properly host. People just don't get it. And I think until you actually go and do a season somewhere and you have to MC every single night, you'll never understand the full concept of what it is.
Yeah, I get that, definitely. So what year was this then? Like, obviously you were trying to get in with the Creamfields a lot on that.
Yeah, so I came back in, so I left 2012, and I came back late 2000. I came back in September. First year Reminisce was on. I came back the day before Reminisce, the first one, so I think it was 2014.
Right.
So that's the first gig I came back to.
And you thought, fucking hell, things have changed here.
So that's when I was like, yeah, this tends to be a step in the right direction, because I think a lot of my connections and people who I knew, they've been doing run-of-the-mill stuff for years, and everyone was looking at, you know, going bigger and better. So I was just fortunate enough to be kind of jump on that ride and be, again, timing. Everything is just timing. I was around at the right time, and by that point I'd progressed. I'd added another string to my bow, and I could go and do a house gig. I could go and do bounce. I could host all night. I could MC all night if I wanted. You know,
Yeah.
that's just how it.
There's nothing wrong with being versatile as well. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a lot of DJs don't realise that you need to be be versatile. We'll say that a lot of MCs don't, because you'll see these lads who like the grime MCs they'll go for that, but then question why they're not on like an event. And it's like, well, is there any other MCs in that style who do that? No, there not. So that's why you're not on it. Whereas you see some people who are just hosts as well, and they can't do the sort of rushy, fucking fire it all out. So like, there's definitely a happy medium within it all.
Yeah.
I find anyways.
Yeah, and it's horses for courses. Some people like the full-on stuff. Some people don't. So,
as a majority thing, though, I think if you were to go to a wider audience, like, I wanted to ask you this as well about Australia. Like, if you were over there, they've got their NRG scene, and there isn't any MCs.
well,
Like,
it was dead at the time.
Yeah,
It went. I was gutted because I went over there thinking, right, so
go to one or two.
yeah.
events,
So I dropped Alex an email, and I was like, I said, yeah, let me know when the next event's on. And he was like, yeah, we'll do, bro. And then there was never any events. It just completely died off. So
it's only started coming back now, really.
I know.
Well,
I was at a gig in Belfast last week, and Sunset Brothers were there, so I was having like a good chat with them about it and stuff.
Right.
And they were just saying it's gone massive. They've really blew up. They're doing really well for themselves. The Decadence nights over there,
They're looking
are firing.
Yeah.
And
I've seen the girls with the chainsaws on her chest and that, and the fucking fire. It's like,
So
you don't get that sort of production here.
I know, but it's mad because I was looking forward to, I might have done a bit over there, but there was just no energy events there at the time. It completely died off. We at the same time as what it did over here. It's only made a resurgence the last 5-6 years or something like that.
Yeah. So we'll move forward now. I booked you in 2016, and you came up my way. And from that night, I thought, like, I don't know how to put this into words, but like, you come back as like a sort of new animal. Like, when I put you on, I can remember coming in the club. I don't know if you can remember this or not, but like, people were like hanging off you. Like,
I think it's. I think security had to escort me out. I couldn't get out. I was trying to leave, but people won't let me leave. Yeah,
so like when after the set, I says, mate, you're gonna have to come down. Like, the only reason was, I don't even know if you know this part of the story. The only reason was we thought to do it is because there was a girl on the left hand side, and she was getting like weird. She took her knickers off and threw them at you, but like, and like one of the
still got them now.
One of the bouncers came and says, listen, this is going to be dangerous for figures down here, because they're like, people were like right in front of you, right in your face and that. So then we got you out the back door, like, and had to like get you escorted through the crowd, because it was like a celebrity who just walked in or something. But it was a really good night.
But I think a lot of that is the thing that's changed around that period is the Snapchat thing and selfie kind of thing. So it got to the I think a lot as well because of the stuff that I was doing, and I mean I was like even like planning like my image. So I was like, right, every gig now I want to look like a techno DJ, sad as it sounds. So I was like, right, so then at least I know it's just black t-shirt, black jeans, black trainers. That's just what I wear, every single thing. So if I'm on stage, people know it's me.
It is, there's nothing wring with that as well. Like,
and I think it became, because I was doing the bigger gigs. I was doing gigs left, right, and centre, different genres. It kind of, I think bounce, it became a bit uncool, but I think it became not as cringy. And then the Snapchat thing came about where everyone wanted selfies. So that's the thing that's taken over now, because back in like 2010, you might get people asking for the odd picture, but whereas now it's like, it's manic. Like,
that night was ridiculous, by the way, just so you know, like for the people taking photos, like it was the people climbing up on the sides of the like balcony bit where it wasn't like a high balcony, but climbing up on the side and like getting like video with just like even me, and it was just ridiculous. Yeah. But like that's what it was like sort of everywhere for you when at that time. I always remember you were always pushing like the Snapchat thing as well, because if you knowing that someone might upload it onto social media and it's like, oh, is that you? That's Finchy, and then that's just automatic sort of free promotion, and it's.
Well, that's what I learnt a lot from a lot of the guys who were out in Malia. They was really like promoting themselves hard, and you know, they was doing kind of all right for themselves and opening up different avenues. So I took a lot of inspiration from them, and at the time, nobody really in bounce was doing anything remotely like that. So I'd only set up my page in like 2016, my Facebook page. And I think just again from that reaction, I think I had 6,000 followers after 24 hours. Just like it went mad. So I knew there was like some legs in it. I kind of always knew there was a lot of untapped potential, but I couldn't be asked. The door was always open. I just could never be asked stepping through it. So that's at the point where I thought, let's change things up and let's give it a good go and see where it takes us.
Do you think now, like in today's climate, there's untapped marketing within bounce? Because a lot of people seem, when they put nights on, it all seems to be the same format. Whereas you were saying, like with the whole Snapchat thing, and like, do you reckon there's a little avenues that bounce haven't explored yet with marketing?
Yeah, and I've said it all along. Just do what I do instead of looking inward. Look outward. Look at other scenes. Look at what, and this goes for producers. It goes for DJs. It goes for MCs. Anybody, photographers, whatever you do within the music industry or any type of business. What you do. Instead of looking upwards and copying what they're doing, look outwards and think what is the best in. If you're an MC, to me, like drum and bass are the best MCs, right? So what they're doing, what content are they pushing out? How are they marketing themselves? What are they doing? Right, I'm going to do that.
Absolutely.
And producers I
find I went the other way with producing. Like I was taking elements from other things and like solely doing it like that, and the bounce heads didn't like that much change. So you have to find the balance where it still needs to sound like something they know, but take inspiration. Say, as you showed me that tune before, like with hardstyle, or take something from garage, or like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a fine line within bounce, because people who love bounce love it for what it is, and then when you I went too far the other way, trying to like incorporate other styles, and it's like, well, that's not bounce, and it's like,
Well, I mean, you said that though, but there is, when I first started doing bounce and started MCing, like I said, a lot of people were just on about Biddy Biddy Bad Boy and, I'm going to, stick a knife in your face and all this, and, the bloody electricians.
Yeah.
So I just went completely the opposite direction and it kind of clicked on. So it can work. Yeah. And it's, like I said, that's a thing as well with a lot of people in the scene. They do the same things over and over and expect different outcomes, and it's just insanity, isn't it? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. So it is, like you said, you've got to sometimes push the boat out, go outside your comfort zone, think out the box. Yeah. I've said it for years, like for DJs, there's nobody in bounce who's doing stuff like James Hype and Danny T, properly doing stuff on the decks. They copy what Nicky B's been doing for 20 years and think it's a revelation. It's not.
Absolutely.
That's the only reason I think nobody's really massively come through and taken the mantle, because I do worry sometimes thinking, like, who's going to take over the mantle? Because all the top dogs, everyone's getting older. Yeah, and there's not really many.
Like, I sometimes think to myself now, because I always find it's always rehashed classics and chart remixes, and for me, it's like, at what point does it become an old school scene? Like, I don't want it to be that. I want it to stay fresh, and you're trying to bring names through, but like, no offense to some people, but you were talking about reinventing yourself and stuff like that. There's a lot of people who've got these old tricks, and it's worked for 15, 20 years, and they're just still playing the same classics, playing the same sort of set, but in a different order. Or MCing, like the do rhymes which they know works, but at what time does it become nostalgic rather than fresh? I know it's something we could argue about for forever and ever, but there's definitely a balance in people coming to the nights for reliving the youth, and then people, this is fresh music. This is I've never heard this guy is cool. Like, if somebody came along now and it was, as you say, someone like a Danny T or James Hype or someone like that, and played, every other DJ out there would be like, what the fuck? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it wouldn't take long before you've seen videos of this DJ going out there doing that, and it's like a breath of fresh air all over again. Yeah, but nobody's just got the nous to. Is it complacency? I don't know. Well, like I said, I think it comes down to a lot of people look at what the favourite producer's doing, the favourite DJ, the favourite MC, and think, well, if I just copy what they do, then, don't get me wrong, there's some up and comers out there that probably might be able to perform at a similar level, but. Yeah. The thing, they might get cheesed off because they're not getting noticed, but they're just doing stuff that's been done for 20 years. Yeah. So that that stuff's not gonna get people noticed. And that, like I said, that goes for everyone: DJs, producers, MCs. Because you see a lot of people getting griped online and
And that's all they're doing. They've just got to do something different.
Yeah.
Words of wisdom.
Right, we'll close up this section and we'll do the questions.
Right, cool.
So we're back in 2 minutes.
Yeah, cool.
So we're back again with part 2 of 2. This is the questions what people have wrote in. If you want to write in to the podcast, you can find us on Instagram and on Facebook, and just drop us a message with your questions. Anything at all, anything goes. We've read some stupid questions on here before, and we've read some really good ones. There seems to be a lot of people interested in the industry at the minute, so I just want to get into this with you. Hi mate, who's your favourite DJ to come out of Cumbria and why? And that's from Jamie.
Favourite DJs coming to Cumbria.
That's obviously a local lad.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of untapped talent in Cumbria, but same with the Northeast lads. I was talking with Ben Rushin about this the other day. There's a lot of lads who are maybe not in the heartbeat, that's like the Wigan area, so you Burnley, Blackburn, Accrington, Preston, Blackpool, and I find that maybe like not overlooked, because I don't think it's overlooked. I just think that they're from up there, they won't sell tickets for my event. That's how it is.
Yeah.
And a couple of names that come to my head from the Northeast. There's that. Well, there's actually a few lads getting booked from the Northeast at the minute. That Alan Ben seems to be doing all right. Yeah. There's that Hardy M. A couple of like producers who's doing all right. But as I say, in Cumbria, there's a few really talented DJs out there. But I feel like there's sometimes an afterthought. Would you agree?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, like I said to you before, I think geography does play a part in it, especially for me. I think if I wasn't from Wigan, I don't think I would have been half as successful as what I've been. I definitely would have made it in some guys, but I'm quite fortunate where the whole town's behind me. And because we are within the heartbeat of the actual bounce scene itself, it's helped massively play a part. So yeah, I totally understand that, and I mean I can see it from both sides as well, from being a promoter and being an artist. And yeah, I mean you probably would think, right, if there's a DJ who's up in Newcastle or Essex, Birmingham, wherever, and they're bring the same thing to the table as somebody else who lives local. It's just an easier thing.
Yeah.
But again, it comes down to for people outside the catchment areas is to put themselves in the shop window and do something different.
Yeah.
I mean, like with hardcore, for instance, a lot of that is like Midlands based, and stuff down south.
Yeah.
I'm from up north. I brought something different to the table, and then I've been taken into the fold.
Yeah.
So it does work. It's just finding that something to stand out.
Absolutely.
But
I
I think in answering to your question, I mean, the ones that stand out is obviously Zuni, who I've known for a long time. He made a success of it. Not yourself, Chris. Really like Gary Keeler as well from Carlisle.
Yeah.
He's like, obviously can play a
Genres
range of different genres. And yeah, he knows his stuff. So yeah, they're the kind of the main ones from Cumbria.
Right. For me, I'd have to say there's a lad called Andy Kelly. Always rated him as a DJ, bit of a fucking scratch wizard as well. But I did a podcast with him a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago now actually. And honestly, like he was showing me some of the stuff he's writing, and it's like it would slot into bounce so well. It's 140, we would call it. I don't know. It's like hard house / trance, and it's got like a big techno kick, nice offbeat bass, and I'm just thinking, if the right people hear this, I think it could be big. And I would say, yeah, he's probably one of my favourite DJs from out of Cumbria.
I'll keep an eye.
I'll send you some of his stuff, and you'll hear it. It's just like, wow, that is that. Do you know when you were saying about bring something different to the table?
Yeah.
Nobody's producing music like that. I mean, you can tell there's influence from like David Rust or like Patrick Toppin, Ben Nicky. It's got that sort of like energy to it, but it's still got the hard house roots and bits of like clublandy stuff.
Right.
But it sounds really good. Next question. What is the most embarrassing moment of your life? And that's from Carl with the C.
Of my life.
I mean, you don't need to share it on here, mate.
I'm trying to think. No, I'm one of them. I can always laugh at myself. I don't really get embarrassed. But there's one that sticks out recently, actually, that happened, which was quite embarrassing, is when me and the missus was travelling across Europe. was heading to Milan train station to get the train back into Switzerland, and let's just say I caught myself short going to the toilet, which wasn't pleasant.
Been there, done that several times.
No, it was horrific. I was like, the first places I went to, all the toilets were out of use. Sounds like disgusting. I hope you're not eating your tea or anything. The toilets were out of use. The only toilets that were in use were down the other side of the train station. The place was the size of the Trafford Centre, this train station. It was huge. So, yeah, that's probably about it. I mean, I don't get embarrassed. I don't take, like I say, I don't take myself serious. So.
I don't take myself seriously, so when I am embarrassed, it seems to be top level embarrassment. Like, there's two things that stick out in my head right now. When I seen that question, it instantly came into my head, and I've never told anyone this. So I'm just going to tell everybody, the 800 of you who listen a week, you're going to find out now. So when I read this, I just, like, it unlocked a memory in my head that I thought, oh, I tried blocking that out for so long. When I was younger, I don't know, 12 or 13 or something, you know, you're like, and you're just a horny little ladder, do you know what I mean? I was pulling the pud, right? And all I heard was this, I'm thinking, what the fuck's that? And I was lying on my bed. I looked up like that, because window cleaner's just there. I was like, oh no! That's one of my most embarrassing moments of my life.
Do you still see him now as well?
Luckily, we've got a different window cleaner. Same house as well, so that's the worst part of it. Yeah. But the fact that he carried on cleaning the window, because obviously when all I heard was a, and I'm just like, oh no! And he's like, I look up and like everything was in my hand, and I was just like, oh no, what the fuck? And another one, another one would be, this could be one of the most embarrassing stories of my life, but do you know when you get like sort of passive embarrassment? Because it's just as soon as you said about travelling there, me and my missus went travelling we went all around Europe doing interrailing. So we started in Denmark and we finished in Milan, and we've done 14 different countries on the way. And then we were staying, like, we wanted to go for the proper travellers experience. Hostels, and trying that, and it was so good. Like, you meet so many fucking random people. It's like the first night there we stayed in Denmark, and that was just like there was 9 of us in one room, and it was just fucking such great crack. Anyways, we got down to Vienna, and we got there late at night. We just got in, and we're all a bit tired and that, like, do you know what I mean? So we went in, and it was a 6-person room. So there was 2 bunk beds to your right, another 2 bunk beds there, and then 2 singles, which was free. So me and my missus took them. So I went to sleep and whatnot, and then I woke up the next morning. But all I can remember is I opened my eyes, and my missus is looking directly at me across the bed, and then I took like a moment to sort of come round, because like obviously you expect her to start talking to you, and then her eyes are going like looking down. And I like sat up and looked, and there was this like Brazilian girl sitting there completely naked, right? And like big massive jungle out, and it was like, because she see me wake up, she's like, oh, hi, how are you doing? Where you from? Blah blah blah. And starting this conversation, and I'm just like just looking away, and just like, yeah, I've come from England. So she got sort of talking about. All you can see is that my missus' covers like bouncing up and down, like she's laughing her head off, and like I didn't know how to do it or to deal with it or anything. But I had so much embarrassment on her behalf, but like I was embarrassed because I couldn't like look at her, and she was like, oh no, it's fine, and all this, and like she's obviously a bit of a free spirit. Yeah. And
see, I'm like intrigued by people. I like
odd,
people like odd people. They fascinate me. There's a close group of like my friends, like with me, like well, you won't know some of them, but there's me and about 4 or 5 of us, and we all kind of like, we click onto like the same kind of characters. Like if we spot somebody who does something that we like,
you just give each other the eye, don't you?
Have you seen? Have you got onto this guy yet? Or have you got onto this girl yet? And then we've all got that similar kind of
it's just
well, it's not humour, but like, you know, we enjoy like them type of people who just don't care. You know, they just do not care. It's good. I think it's a good trait to have.
It is a good trait to have, but like, you can make it uncomfortable for like...
Yeah, I mean, for certain people, I mean, if somebody sat there with the moggy out, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be embarrassing. I mean, I'd find it hilarious.
I was laughing, but like, do you know when you're like... Because obviously she's just 100% happy with how she is and what she's doing. So like, laughing, it might be offensive to her. So I was just like, I like just covered my full face.
I'd definitely laugh. I won't be able to help myself.
And then I just remember like my missus laughing to this side, and then like the bunk bed this last was on, there was like a young lass who was on top bunk. She just woke up, sat up, looked, shook her head and just went back to sleep. It was like, fuck. So they're my two most embarrassing things. One of them was myself directly, and the other one was somebody else. But like, you do get like embarrassment on behalf of people sometimes. Like when you hear somebody who's like really cheeky, and you just think, oh no, this isn't going to end well.
Yeah.
Next one was, this is the last one for today. Is as a young'un, who did you look up to as an inspiration? And that's from Steve. Yeah. So when you were coming through as an MC, who was the guy?
But like I said to you before, it was definitely Avi, FEZ, Layback and Rhythm were the ones who really kind of aspired to be, and I took little bits from what they did and put my own kind of twist on it. So there was elements of, I loved like Rhythm was the first person I ever heard do the full on hyper rhyming stuff, like the fast stuff. Like when I heard him, there's probably been about 3 or 4 MCs that when I've heard, I've like gone like, wow, like what is that? Like obviously, well, taking having FEZ outside of it because they were the first I heard, so that obviously blew my mind. But then Rhythm, the first time I heard him, I was like, I thought he was some kind of like machine. I thought he can't be real because he was so different. But yeah, he was one. Arky, the first time I heard Arky, he like properly blew my mind. He was like, wow. When Grimes did the Sexy Nun, like the GMC CD, that was like when he first got out.
I found that like very different and like it was
unbelievable.
Yeah, the closest thing I can put into this, I don't know if you're into comedy or not, but like that I always find that his style, it was like the Dave Chappelle style of like of bounce when he was doing, because it would always be like controversial subjects. And when I heard that, I was just like, this is different, and I like this.
So that like blew me. But I mean, I'd known Grimesy because he was one of the guests who used to come down and do the under 18s before he made his debut at the over 18s, because he was a friend of Jacko's. So he used to come down, and so I'd met Grimesy before. So I've known Grimesy again.
Was he Grimesy then?
No, he's always been MCG.
Oh no, what I mean is though, like, was he? When you first heard him, was he doing that obscure rhymes, or was he just
he'd do the odd stuff, but you could tell even then his rhyming was just unbelievable.
Like,
and I think once he had a bit of time to like think about
refine it and stuff.
So there was him. Trying to think, some of the stuff Pressure and Easy do that always blows my mind. Like, they're so talented. Obviously Jordan's OnlyFans. It's like I said, my early inspirations were the four I mentioned, having FEZ, Layback and Rhythm, but then as time goes on and other MCs come into the fold and they do different stuff, and you get inspired by stuff they do.
Do you, as a producer, like, I feel like when I hear a certain producer put like a track out, and I'm like, oh, I need to sort of up my game. So see, when you were saying you've heard like say Easy and Pressure or Cova do, he's just done that level up thing, hasn't he? Do you feel inspired to be like, right, well, I'll take that one step further? I always find that it's healthy competition. It's not like competitive where it's cutthroat. It's more, it's like, you're doing that, I'll have to think of something outside the box now.
I don't know. I honestly don't look at it that way. I am a very competitive person. I always have been, but
so who won golf today then, Ben or you?
Ben did better than me today. Yeah.
Competitive.
Go
on. Sorry.
We're both the same. I've never been, in terms of like music, I've always been one to just appreciate it rather than think, oh, what could I do better, or try and pick a negative. I've always been about kind of sharing success. I've never, when I say I've been inspired, I'd be like, well, yeah, that is good, and not so much as though I need to up my game, because I mean, I've not really done anything really of note in terms of content wise for a good few years now. I mean, I've always keep saying I need to do new mix because I know that people keep requesting it, but it's the time and effort I put into doing a mix now is different to just turning up and seeing over tunes.
I find that if you do something now, like you put it on yourself to be like, well, if you want to do something, it needs to be new. You can't just come on and do, I don't know, Purple Lucky. Like, do you know what I mean? You've got that drive I would say that I've got that you don't want to just recycle the.
Yeah, I just want to do stuff for the sake of it.
Yeah,
If I'm
yeah.
going to do it, I'll do it. I'll come up with a. I mean, well, I think the last thing the concept came up with was like the Supreme, like mix CD.
So that was different as well. Like,
Yeah, so that's when I've had the thought for a year, and I thought, right, for more than a year, I had the thought for ages, but I didn't have the technical know-how to put it all together.
Yeah.
But obviously, since I've learned Ableton, I knew then I could put that what I wanted to do. I could make it become a reality, and then since then, nothing's really. Yeah, there's been some good stuff that other people have brought out, but I've never been one to think, bloody hell, I need to up my game if I'm to stay relevant. I've never thought.
Oh no,
that.
no, it's not stay
No,
relevant.
yeah, not to stay relevant. I've never thought, to up my game.
I've never thought to myself, oh, they're doing this, so I should do this. It's more of the fact of that's impressive.
Yeah.
Let me try and do something outside the box where it's like you're just a bit for them just to go. Well, for instance, an example would be. Dazinman, Poops Dals, he sends me stuff. We've talked about this on his podcast, and basically when he send me stuff, I'd be like, "Whoa, I need to do something here, right?"
Yeah.
And it'd inspire me to like up my game, and then it makes you better as a producer as well.
Yeah.
I find.
I mean, there's a lot of people that have said the same as well. Like when I've done stuff, they're like, "Oh, now you've done that. It's ignited a bit of a fire."
Yeah, exactly.
in me.
Yeah.
So I think other people. I think I'm just a bit of a freak. I've never really thought that way, but I do get other people like that. But yeah, I kind of just cruise along at my own speed, and then especially since moving, I've not really been inspired much musically, aside from doing the gigs. It's only when I set my PC up and started like looking through a few new bits. I've done a few like really good gigs recently as well, like a few big festivals. I'm like, right, go on, just need crack on. So that's why I got in touch with like Fitzy and Ross. To get this track done that we started working on last night, and I've got a load of other things now bubbling away, and it's more music that inspires me more than what kind of other people are
absolutely.
doing, so to speak.
I think the difference between me and you, like the big difference is like you can go a long time without like doing content. Not a long time, but like you could have something sitting on the back, like that album. You spent a long time doing that, and you didn't mention it to many people. I remember when you said to me about it that you were thinking about doing it, and then you sort of chip away at that, but like you can consistently still be out there doing the gigs because you're Finchy. Whereas I find now I'm constantly trying to like grind and push to get my foot in the door at places, and it's like if you're not putting out content, you seem irrelevant, and I don't want it to become a content machine. I don't want it to be like where you need to be doing this every week, you need to be doing this. Like I want to do the podcast every week, and I want to produce tunes at my own pace, but sometimes you've just got to grind that a little bit harder as someone trying to break through.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's just one of them things. But as I say, like if you were to do another album, you could sit with that on the back burner and still go out as Finchy.
Yeah,
so it's a really nice position that you're in.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So,
and I do feel lucky to be in that as well, because I do know I'm fortunate where I can kind of pick and choose the gigs. I mean, I turn down 2-3 times more than the gigs I actually take. I mean, I'm getting inquiries pretty much like daily about doing certain dates, and I turn quite a lot down because, as I said, my diary at the start of the year, it's got to the point now where, because I do quite a lot of the bigger events, they tend to be held around the same time period each year.
All the time.
So I sat down in January, and then within 2 or 3 phone calls, my diary was pretty much full for the year, by 6-7 weekends.
It's good that. It's very good.
I'm in a fortunate position.
Nice little cameo from the cat.
She's back again now.
Right, we'll tie that up, mate, because I know you're busy. So
no, appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, no problem. So where can people find you?
So I'm on, well, obviously Instagram, Facebook. I don't really use Snapchat anymore. Just Facebook and Instagram are my main places.
MC Finchy, is it?
Yeah, the MC Finchy. And
the one and only MC Mint.
Yeah. aka MC Mint. mcfinchy.com as well, my website, but there's not really much stuff going on there at the minute, and
No problem.
I don't really plan to put anything on as of yet. But Spotify as well, to follow me, MC Finchy, Spotify, SoundCloud, but yeah, mainly Spotify or Apple Music.
You've got a bit of a playlist as well on Spotify.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a playlist. I update all the time, and I've got some new music coming out as well in the next couple of months.
No worries. Right, if you've enjoyed the podcast, I'd appreciate it if you shared it. As I say, as usual, more ears it reaches, the better, because someone could discover this podcast who might not have knew about it, and it could be their favourite thing ever. Because I've been getting some really nice messages off you saying, basically, like, they look forward to it. Like, we missed an episode last week, and I had people messaging me saying, like, what am I going to do with my work week now, when it makes it easier and stuff like that. So, like, the people listen to it while they're at work, or they dedicate an evening to it. So, yeah, I really appreciate all the support we're getting on it. Thanks for listening. I'll see you later.